Welcome to Med Talks, a place for mentorship, education, and development. Inspired by early careerists eager to learn from the knowledge and experiences of their preceptors, Med Talks was created as a professional development platform where UF Health preceptors can share their stories with the next generation of healthcare leaders. Each month we will hear from a different leader on topics ranging from technical tips and tricks to life lessons and growth opportunities that have made them the leaders they are today. Think of Med Talks as a place where leaders can share all the things their younger selves needed to know. During this time, we invite you to ask questions and learn as our leaders share what motivates and drives them to success.
So envision that we're sitting beside a fire, right, in your cozy leather chairs, and the fireplace is crackling. So that's kind of what I wanted us to do, is just have this conversation and be comfortable. So when I was first asked to give this Med Talk, I thought, my gosh, what am I going to talk about, right? What could I possibly say to you guys you would want to hear from me? And then I thought about all of the TED Talks I've watched, and some of my favorites are Amy Cuddy, who talks about empowerment and about being your most authentic self and displaying confidence and how to do public speaking. I also thought about Tony Robbins. We've talked about that because he's one of my favorite, and how passionate they are about obviously what they're speaking about. And to me, I thought about its relationships. And I think Emma said, let's talk about crucial conversations. I'm like, well, no, let's not do that. So I thought about relationships. That's what I'm passionate about. So then I thought, how did I get here? And it is, what you know, obviously, your education and what you know get you through the door. But it's really about the relationships that you build along the way. And so I thought, what could I offer you all or discuss that would make your career path a little bit easier, that I wish I would have had as young learners as you are entering into the career world? And that was to how I could navigate and what I was needed. And I was thinking about a mentor that I had, and she always talked to me about having relationships, that the process begins the moment you meet somebody, the first impression, right? You only have that one opportunity to make that first impression. That doesn't mean that that's how it's going to end. It's just how you can build upon that. You might hear some cringy or cliche things in here, but that's me. And so one cringy thing I will say is that, I was always taught when I was raised was that, people aren't always going to remember what you've done, what your accomplishments are, but they will remember how you made them feel. So this is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, to invest in people, which means to actively listen, to engage, to support, to offer connections and collaboration, and sharing information and resources. Next is to be honest, obviously to be transparent. Don't be afraid to have difficult conversations. Of course, be respectful. That's one thing I've always, I have 2 daughters, I've always taught them that, to be respectful and kind. And don't let miscommunications linger, because the longer something is out there, people are going to make up their own narrative, have their own story, and it's not necessarily always your story or the correct story. Handling conflicts professionally strengthens your relationships, so keep that in mind. And the next one is, this is my highest thing, because when you talk about your DISC style, I'm a DI, so I'm all about results, right? I check a list. I have checklists and everything. You can ask Mike and Mindy. I give them lists all the time. This is something that I really want to hone in on. Respond and deliver results. If you get an email, sometimes if you're late, but respond to them. Show them what you're going to do and actually fulfill the promises. If you say, I'm going to get back to you tomorrow, get back to them tomorrow. That's building relationships. That's building trust. And another thing I was going to bring up is when everyone knows that the previous dean, which was Colleen Cook, when she first came here, she wanted to change our culture, which was, it's still not changed. It's been broken, where we have this disconnect between us and the hospital. And she wanted to change how we lead and become more servant leaders. And so she engaged, which was a company called Third Rivers, and they taught servant leadership. Now, we've gone through it through our Elevate as well as internally. But one of the things, and the reason I'm bringing this up, which is a key component that I've focus on is that relationships move at the speed. Results move at the speed of relationships. So there are many times because of relationships I have that I will call, for instance, Brandon, and ask Brandon, hey, can you help me in this situation? And if it's easier and it'll be done quicker if we have that relationship, right? If you have a sour relationship, sometimes, I know that some people like me, someone will call you that you're like, yeah, you don't really dig that person. So you're less inclined to jump through hoops maybe for that person. So I wanted you to keep that in mind. And the other thing I wanted you to keep in mind too is in servant leadership, we learned about leadership wake. And what that is envision like a big ski nautique boat going down the lake, and what the wake is that it creates for you to wake surf or wakeboard. That happens when you're talking about relationships and leadership and at the speed of which they go. So if you're moving really, really fast, making results oriented, think about the wake that you're creating behind you and how that affects your relationships. Okay, this is pretty simple recognition. Nobody likes to get their credit stolen, right? Everybody wants to feel like they're valued or have a purpose, and they want to be recognized for their contribution. This is also really huge for me, and I think my team can attest to that. I don't ever want to take somebody's credit or not provide or give the credit that's due. And then comes another cringy part. I mentioned to Lena when we met that a book I read when I was your age, which is, only 10 years ago, but just to let you know, that was about relationships are gardens, right? You have to tend to them, you have to feed them, you have to nourish them. And the more that you invest in these relationships, the stronger they will become and the more benefits you'll receive and the person that you build the relationships with. So now it's story time. I'm going to give you a couple examples of some good communications and good relationships. And one prominent one is, I know that Juan and our team would understand, is Kathy Peck. Kathy Peck, we brought back. She's actually helping with our Elevate initiative. She was somewhat in my role back in the early 2010 and 11, and then she left and she went to Indiana University as a COO, and then she went to UVA as that COO, and then she retired and came back here and with her husband and at the time when she worked here, she was my mentor, right? Someone I strive to be. And so we built this really good relationship and we kept in contact with each other. Well, now she's back. And when we started Elevate, I thought, what a better person to bring on board with us who's been in our organization, who's also been out in the field, that could give us some insight and help us on our journey with Elevate. And I thought, in all honesty, she was helping us. It was helping me, right? And what I've since found out, because we have a very strong relationship, and she is trying to really help her college and me as well, is that I was helping her because she had retired and she missed, this environment. And so, and we talked about our relationship and we kept it going and how important it was and what I have benefited from her and what she's benefited from me. And then another one, I'll talk about another really good relationship that I have that has been very fruitful over the years, is I'm very close with the VP of on HR, right, Melissa Curry. And the reason I'm bringing that up is she'll call me and ask, because they don't understand the College of Medicine. We're very difficult, very challenging. And she'll call and ask questions. And some of the decisions that have been made by campus have been because of our relationship and because of the education we both have provided with each other. I mean, that's been, imperative that I have maintained that relationship, but also the knowledge that we both give to each other. And she's also done things like, because we're so unique, we've talked about maybe having different job classifications in the College of Medicine. And I don't know if that would necessarily be a topic of conversation if we didn't have that relationship. There was some immediate buy-in that if Tammy's bringing this to me, then, I'm going to respect it and listen to it and help her with it. But now we'll talk about some bad relationships. I mean, there's a lot of bad relationships I've had. And I have one that I can talk about that's been very most recent was I was trying to develop a new relationship with the hospital, somebody on the hospital side. And I just wasn't getting anywhere. I'm talking like meetings were getting canceled, doors were being shut in my face, and I just kept trying, and finally I was like, there's nothing I can do, right? Well, since that time, take a few months that have passed, now this person's coming back to me, wanting to relationship with me, because understanding that we should collaborate with each other. And so when I look back on it and have talked to this person, I'm like, well, what went wrong, right? Like what was going on? And it's mostly because of how that person felt about themselves and or about me in the situation. And it could have been threatening. I don't know what it was, but I kept trying, and I just got to the point where it's like, never mind. And I started realizing that when all of these poor relationships or things that have happened in the past and relationships have soured, it's been because of communication or a lack thereof. And so that's the other thing I wanted to just give into your mind, is to think about communications, is that if something isn't going well, try to sit back and figure out what is it that's not going well. It's where the disc style comes in. You and I talked about that the other day, Lena, where if you that's cheating though, because you don't always get to know what people's disc style is, right, on their badge, but it helps. So if you get to know the person, it really helps. Like I know with Mike, for instance, he's more data driven and concise and wants, I'm gonna say perfection, right? Where I'm like, let's just do it, we'll fix it, right? That stresses him out. So we have, it can't do that. We have communicated, right? And so we've learned how to handle with each other, but it's about communication. So what I wanted to also do right now is actually, I want to invite you all to take a moment and reflect on some of your favorite relationships, personal and professional, and what qualities of those relationships have made them special to you. How do they have positive influence into your life? And how do they influence your emotions? For me, in relationships about that significance, and when I consider they're healthy, it's what the positive emotions invoke in me. Like reflecting on my achievements, I realize that the relationships that I nurtured have played a crucial part in my career growth. It's where I felt valued, I felt trusted, I felt heard, I felt not judged, right? Because immediately when you walk into a room, I don't know about you guys, but I feel judged immediately. And then that gets you in your headspace. And so I think that I go to where I feel safe. And, many people have talked about it's who they know, they name drop. Well, I'm really good friends with Juan. Juan is the president and CEO. I mean, that does help you, but really it's about the relationship that Juan and I have. It's not necessarily that I know him and I can name drop with him. And in your career path, you're going to work with directors and COOs and CFOs and individuals who've made it in their positions through a combination of just their experience. Some don't care about relationships and will use you as a stepping stone to get ahead. But really and truly, when you look back, I think most of them will tell you it's about the relationships that they cultivated and how they were able to learn from them and bring them to their career path that they're in. And that's basically all I had for today. I mean, I wanted you guys to ask questions and interact, and I can tell more stories if you want to know. Anything? Comments? Mike, you always have a comment.
I always have comments. So I was a fiscal assistant in family medicine, and I was promoted to a senior accountant in family medicine. And then I found an error in the UPL calculation, and a position in the dean's office came open. And Tammy was like, wait a second, this guy found an error from somebody who was like a genius, Aya. Mm-hmm. So maybe we need him in the dean's office. And so I came up here, and one of the first things Tammy said to me is, you need to work on relationships. And that was what, 13 years ago? She's been preaching this since I met her. Man, what a dead horse. But she's 100% right. I struggle with it because I don't like people. Like, that's just my personality. Like, new people, I have nothing to say to you. I don't know you. We have no basis, and like, it takes a long time to get to know me. And after that, it's fine. But it's very difficult for me, and it's something I've had to work on a lot. But it has proved very fruitful for me, because I can walk down the hall and I say hi to chairs and senior associate deans, and they're like, hey Mike, how you doing? And like, they know me because I've taken the time to get to know them. And so you have to, there's a drawing I have on the whiteboard in my office, that is a bullseye, where the center is your comfort zone, and then right outside that is the learning zone, and then right outside that is the panic zone. And so the further away you get from your comfort zone, the more panic inducing it is. And so for me, building relationships is like 100% on the edge of the panic zone. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. So uncomfortable for me, but it has been worth it, so.
In full disclosure, because I'm very transparent, my panic button is having to get in front and present, and I mean, really, I like this. Like, I don't like to just stand up. I could never be a lecturer. I could never be a teacher. That's just not who I am unless we sit down and do this. But I know Mike is really good at presenting, so I'll lean on him, right? That's the other thing about relationships. I'm glad that resonated with Mike, because at first he thought I had 3 heads. I mean, that's how he looked at me, like, what, are you kidding? And I love people. That's my, like you called it, my superpower. Relationships and making people feel valued and appreciated is something that I strive to do on a daily basis. So that's something I was just thinking about. Mindy and I have talked about when I was probably your age, well, not my age, which is old, I should say. I handle things differently. Like, I would just keep trying, and I make a joke like, no, you're gonna love me. Like, we're gonna make this work. You're gonna love me. And that would be like taking out to coffee. I was telling Lena that, or taking, like, I gave a little card, like your message about Valentine's Day. I love Valentine's Day. So I gave cards out to everyone, and just because it makes me feel good, right? But that made a big difference in some people, or given a little gift card. I mean, just kind of really working at it. How I am today, I still do that, but I also say, what's the problem? What's going on here? Something's not okay. Is it me? I mean, am I the problem? Like Taylor Swift's song. But no, seriously, what's going on? That's where I am today. But when I was younger, I didn't do that. And now that I have confidence, I do. And I think it's asking and just being frank with somebody. What's going on? Why are we not gelling? Or I feel like we're not okay. And then there have been times where people are like, what are you talking about? Because they're not a people person. And so we're not having the same language. So.
And you're not always going to be best buddies with everyone,
No.
but you can still do the things like Tammy suggested, still be transparent, still be honest, still deliver results. That way you're doing what you need to do, and if it's just not in the cards for you to have a good relationship, again, maybe they might come around and they may say, oh, Josie has always been so nice, she's always done all of these things, I know I can go to her, I know I can trust, and it just might take time.
Well, that's the example I gave of a poor relationship. To your point, was that I just was myself. I was respectful. I delivered results. I was there when needed. And then now this person's come back around and realized my value.
And I don't think in that instance, it was you. It was whatever was going on in their world. They just weren't open at the time.
I think it's how I've handled that situation is, if are you talking like a job, you have a job to do, right?
Yeah.
So it's just contacting the person and being open and saying, hey, look, I've got this project I'm working on, and I don't know, I would really like to work with you on it. Maybe you're not the best person. What do you think? I mean, just having that conversation and just presenting what it is you're working on. I mean, that's why I said when I'm transparent, what you see is what you get. Like, and I value people like that. Like, there's no hidden agenda. It's just, this is who I am. And so going to the person and asking, I mean, there's so many things that we do in our job where we have to dictate what people need to do, and we also have to move them along. And it's just being completely transparent and honest and having a conversation. And there's no other way, right? And there might be times it'll be off-putting, right? There might be times where the person's like, okay, and you just got to keep trying. Or you go around them and try somebody else.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can use the other people that you built relationships with. I know with the fellows and the interns, sometimes they may want to work on something. And if I know the person that they want to work on it with, I say, let me email them first, introduce you, kind of grease the wheels a little bit. So.
I mean, we have found, I kind of equate it to like when you go up to pet a dog or something and they snap at you, right? We've had you experience that in your career where you'll think that it's okay and you'll go to somebody to ask them and they bite you. You're like, okay, that didn't go okay. And then you just try to find another way. We all have experienced that.
Don't pet people.
I think there's an intimidation of the person and their job, and there's also the intimidation of me not knowing what I don't know or do know, right? How I've navigated or would recommend is, again, having a conversation. I mean, try to find, I mean, you can be a little personal in an HR, like don't pet people, but, hi, how are you? What'd you do this weekend? I mean, just really try to engage them and then get to know them a little bit. If you feel like they're a little closed off or whatever, maybe engage them in something that you're working on, or what is it that you're working on? Just try to have a conversation with them and make them feel more comfortable. That's the best way that I've done it. I mean, I'm also the type of person that I'll go to, like when I was young, I would go to a party and be like, hey, I'm Tammy, what's your name? I mean, that's me. So that's different. Whereas like Mike would never do that. Mike would stand in the back of the corner and you'd have to come to him, but everyone would see him because he's taller than everybody. So, but he would never go up to him and be like, hi guys, that type of thing.
I would talk to a soul.
Respect and kindness. I mean, again, I told you like that sounds cringy, but it's not. I mean, if you always go into something with respect and be kind, then usually you won't have the door slammed in your face, and people will be more inclined and open to work with you and or to build that relationship.
Tammy's very good at collaborating with other people. She doesn't like to work in a silo. When she was named COO, we started looking at what operations was for the College of Medicine, because that had never existed before. One of the first things she said was, we can't do this by ourselves. We have to work with Shan's operations, with UFP operations. And so she created this meeting, and Health Science Center operations created this monthly meeting with Health Science Center operations and Shan's operations. And we would just meet and talk about what was going on. Sometimes there was a lot of things that we could collaborate on. Sometimes it was just informing what we were working on. But by building that relationship, I'll never forget, we were sitting in a meeting with the VP of, what was Brad? Facilities for Shan's, who's now retired. And we made a comment about the fountains in front of our building not working. And he said, what? The fountains don't work? And we're like, yeah, they haven't worked in like 8 years. And he said, well, that's not good. This building is on the Health Science Center campus, on the Shands UF campus. It needs to look as good as everything else. The next thing we know, I get an email with a schedule of the fountains are being fixed. And I'm like, okay, well, we didn't talk about like how much it was going to cost and everything. So we're in the last meeting with him before he retires. They're working on the fountains. And I said, hey, I hate to ask this, but I had heard how much it was going to cost, like $400,000. I said, I hate to ask this, but what's the split? And he goes, nah, I took care of it for you guys. And I was like, what? But it was
because of the relationship.
Yeah.
It was because we complained and complained about it,
but in a respectful way.
Yeah. No, we worked very well with them, and also what Minnie didn't mention is during that relationship we identified space or things that would be optimal for Shan's and vice versa, and so that's collaboration. So with Kathy specifically, because she was a mentor, I literally asked her to be my mentor. Like I said, I started in this department. That's another fun story. I started here, and at the time, Bev Anders was equal to Kathy, but Bev was on the budget side, and Bev went MIA for 9 weeks. So the first day that I had my job, my boss was in here. And then everybody around, like I came into a new environment, everyone's suspicious of me. So my team was kind of like, yeah, I don't know why you're here, that type of thing. So I had to really build that. And I went to Kathy and I asked her, I said, what could I be doing differently? What would you like me to, what do you think I should be doing? And then it evolved into, I want a job. I want to be you when I grow up, right? And what did you do to get there? And would you mentor me? Like I just specifically asked for that mentoring. And most people will do that and would be very honored to, Allison. It is when people are busy, it takes effort where you meet outside of work or you have to make time for that. Okay, I hope this is helpful. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.